孫の時代だ。Do you know my sister? My husband, they went to Japan. Yo, 来てくれたね。ありがとう。いや。そうなのよ。失礼なんです。みんな知ってるよ。こちらしました。
Test 1 2.
No, this is Santa. 이게 거부리게
Test 1, 2.
Who do you want to do Fukadoshi? Should it be Byakuya or?
Hello. Yeah, we're about to start the ceremony, so I request everybody to be seated and share further pleasantries after the memorial service. Thank you so much. So we're now going to start the ceremony. But first of all, I'd like to welcome all of you today to joining us in honoring and celebrating the life of Mr. Jerry Leach. I used to call him Mr. Jerry Leach, so I will refer to him that way. So thank you very much for coming today. So we will begin the ceremony by doing Gongyo, and then subsequent to that, or followed by chanting of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, the universal law of life. So what is Gongyo? In Gongyo, we will recite several lines from the 2nd and 16th chapters of the Lotus Sutra, from which the teachings of Buddhism originate. And then we will chant the universal law of life, that is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. During Gongyo, there will be an opportunity to offer incense, which is kept on the table there. The offering of incense is a Buddhist tradition to honor the deceased and pray for their eternal happiness and enlightenment. As I said, again, the incense is here, and there will be members who will guide you towards the incense. So please take a small pinch, offer it, and those who are unable to do that or do not wish to do so, you may then sit in reflective silence during the process. I will now ask Jim Crumph, our Golden Gate mentor and disciple zone leader, to lead us in the recitation of Gongyo.
Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo.
Myo then ye kyo bambo dai ni ji se zan ju sa ma yan do ni ji go sa ri to to bu ji je jin jin mer yo go ji jin mon dan ye nan yu i cha cho mo ja go ji bu to do bu no ji cha ga bu to do jin yo ja ga den ma na ga bu ju jo bu to jin yo jo bu to mer yo do ho yum yo jo jin yo do bu mo do ju jin jin mi jo ju cha ju ji jo ja do vi ju nang ye ju jo bu jo vi da ju ju ji na ju ju ji jo ko wen gong kyo mu ju ho ben ni do ju no no de jo ja ga jo vi cha ga no dai ho ben ji ken ta me ta ga hi go jo ga jo ri ta no dai chi ken go da ji number yo mo ge de gi Zhen do de da san mai jin yo mo zai jo ju ji chai mi jo ju ho ja ri ja da dai no ju ju bum ba da go je jo do don ji niu nan de ga ju jin ja ri ja da ju yo Murder mo he mi zao nu ha bu ji jo jo ju ji jam ja da bu ju bu da da jo vi cha ga bu jo jo ju da ji ji ge jo nang ge chi ho ju bu da jo bu da nai no go ji ji jo jo vi jo ho no de jo no de jo no de ta no de ji ge no de da no de ji no de yan no de ka no de jo no de jo ma gu jo do yo no day yo no day yo no day ta no day diggy no day ta no day jay no day yan no day kan no day yo no day yo ma go yo do yo we yo ho no day yo no day ta no day diggy no day ta no day jay no day yan no day kan no day yo no day yo ma go yo do Myo den ye kyo no da ju jo hon da ju da ga ji ga da ga bo da jo kyo do go chu mer yo ja ga den ma na ga sa ya so ji jo de bo kyo ke mu chu ba ga ju jo ro ju jo bu ja jo yo go vi do ju jo 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 ben gen de han di ji ja bo me jo 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 ju ji da bo ga jo ju jo ji ji jo jin do de ge jo ten do ju jo ju bu jo ji bu gen ju gen ya me jo jo Cha de gan ya jai dan bo ni so ga da go jin tu do ji chin bu ga ji 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 ga jin yo na ni shin yo ken bu da bu ji ja ga jin yo ji ga yo chu jo ju da jo ro ju san ga ji go chu jo do da ji pu me jo ni go gan nu me da pu me jo yo ga ga ju ju jo ku yo jin yo da ga bu o hi chu vi ta da mu jo ho yo da bu mo ji dan ni ga me da do ga ken jo ju jo mo da da yo ku ga Yan jin ryo go do ga to go win go jin them bo na jin to be the bo jin do the get no day yo wa to ji ko do da ro ju san go jo jo ju jo tu jo jen to jin yo jo ji jo chi do ma no den den do ju ma no den do do ka go ju jo ho jo gon ho ju da ke ka ju jo jo ju da go jo jen jo go jen go Yakadu manda da ke tam bu ju da ju ka jo do pu ki ni chu jen jo jin jo pu jo ku no jo de jin jo jo man de jo da ju jo vi jo ka go vi nan ga ha do ji ko dan rom yo to hu ju ku da kan ju wa jin ji ji ke ja do ka ken ja jin da jin ni je po ba ge ji hi chi ju da do bu jo jo mer jo ku na ken bu ja Ji ga ji de gen yo de je go cho mer jo jum yo mu ju go gu ju go cho de gan yo do ju ji ja mo do ji cho dan do jo jin ba de go ji bu gan yo vi den ho ben ni ji jo ji go ni gan ji mo no de ko mo ga ja go vi de bu ku jo go gen ja ji bum bu den do de da ni gan ba jo vi jo den ya ko ni jo jo ji ten Go yo can da ho ba ga ro ju ga jo ji ju jo yo ro bu jo ro ju yo cho ka ro vi se ju ju ho. Then any ga jo shu jo to go nyu mu jo do so go jo ju bu shin. Nam yo ho den de jo 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 Nam yo ho den de yo nam yo lo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo den de yo nam yo ho 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 den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo Then the John now John so then the John now John then the John now John so 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 then the John so then the John now 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 John so then the John then the John now John so 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 then the John then the John nam yo ho, 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 then the John ho, then the John nam yo 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 ho, then the John ho then the John now 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 John Nam John ho then the John now 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 John ho then the John ho then the John now yo ho then the John now John 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 ho then the John ho then the John now John ho then the John now yo ho then the John now John 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 ho then the John ho then the John now 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 John ho then the John yo ho then the John now John 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 ho then the John yo ho then the John now John 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 ho then the John ho then the John now John ho then the John now yo ho then the John now John ho then the John now John ho then the John now yo ho then the John now John ho then the John ho then the John now 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 John ho then the John then the John nam yo ho 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 then the John then the John now John ho then the John now John ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam yo ho then the John now John 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 ho then the John nam yo ho then the John then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John 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 ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John ho then the John ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John 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 ho then the John ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam yo ho then the John nam John 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 ho then the John ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam John ho then the John nam John ho then the John yo ho then the John Nam yo ho den de yo 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 ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam 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 yo ho den de yo ho den de yo nam yo ho den de yo nam yo ho den de kyo 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 Nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo. Nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo. Nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo, nam yo denge kyo. Nam yo denge kyo. Nam yo denge kyo. Nam yo denge kyo.
And but one thing's for sure, no one has a perfect relationship. There are fights and deeply held views that separate us from each other. And my relationship with my brother is certainly no exception to that, except for the fact of a deep love and respect for our mother and our father, who were the most amazing people you could ever meet. My brother was born at the height of World War II, and me a couple of years later. We lived an ideal upbringing out in Long Island, but that was all about to change. In 1961, Jerry left 4 years of college and after into the military for another 3 years. And then right after that, right out to San Francisco. Like passing ships in the night. We very rarely saw each other except on the phone. And we began a lifelong telephone relationship. Of course, he would come back to New York every once in a while, and I would go out to California. So all of this went on till the end of his life. We would bicker and argue. Jerry always cool and collected, me very uncollected and emotional. But we always came back together over the phone, and I would laugh for hours, and so would he, and reminding each other of the crazy life we have lived. I will only remember the good times we had and the laughter we shared. The bad times mean absolutely nothing to me. I met a man who reminded me of something. He said a little phrase to me. He said, Shun Li. And Shun Li means smooth sailing. And so I would say to Jerry Leach, as you are leaving this planet for new adventures, Shun Li, brother, Shun Li, smooth sailing. That's it.
better neutral, and the other thing, something better. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Berdal. I started practicing Buddhism in 1985. That's when I met Jerry. And, Jerry was such a plain-spoken man. He was really reassuring. I was a young guy. I was 32 years old at the time, and I was trying to find a better way of conducting and living my life. And just meeting Jerry, he seemed real common sense and very believable about meeting somebody who seemed like an honest to goodness good person, and that reassured me, helped me get my practice going, and opened my life up, and it was just a great meeting on my part, meeting him. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kay Mainaga, and Jerry Leach was my first chapter chief in Alameda when I was a teenager. And sometimes back then, we were in the NSA, and we didn't have community centers all over. We had one community center in Daly City, and I didn't have a driver's license, so Jerry, along with other men's division and women's division, would drive us all the way to Daly City, or they'd either have the morning shift or the pick us the brats up after shift. And I really appreciate Jerry. The thing I really liked about him was his voice when he did Gongyo and Daimoku, and the way he spoke when, I'm a teenager, right? So I don't understand the Gosho. I still don't understand the Gosho. But as a teenager, when Jerry spoke and taught and led, he made it understandable to even me. But I have great memories of Jerry and his essence. And then Sakura-chan is his daughter, so that's an extra bonus. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Johnny Engelhart Noel. I'm famous for talking too much, so I'll make it as short as I can. I want to say this in the first person to Jerry, because I'm sure he's listening, because we're Buddhists and life goes on, right? Jerry, you were almost... I hope I never forget what a gentleman you are. What a gentleman you were. And back in those days, so many leaders, and including myself, we were so rough, and and he just was a model for me. And I hope at the age of 78, I can at least live as long as he did, and be like him. He was really something else, more than I can explain in words. But I have him right here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fatima England. I started practicing in 1982, and Jerry really helped me in this practice. I was afraid to get married to Bruce England, and he told me, you have this practice, you have this practice, you don't have to be afraid. So I really appreciated Jerry, and we used to have meetings at your house, Jerry. When our daughter was really a baby and we were really struggling, and it really was support to my practice. So I have Jerry in my heart, all my life. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandy. I moved from San Francisco. I practiced in San Francisco for 8 years. And then in 1979, we moved to Oakland. And I didn't know anybody except Mary Miles, right? Who became my friend because we both had kids at the same time. And she helped me transition. But I still felt a little bit like an outsider, so to speak. A few people really stood out to welcome me here. Mrs. Strickland, who's here today, was my first chapter leader over here. By the way, Mary Strickland's going to be 97 soon, right next month. Isn't that amazing? So she was a great support to me. And I remember the first time meeting Jerry, it was at Alex and Sadako Bo's house. He was the invited leader there. And, he was so easygoing, right? I was kind of used to like, you have to be, watch your P's and Q's around the leader, right? And he just like came over to me and said, well, welcome. He said, it's just so nice to have a normal person here. I was like, that just did it. I just felt so comfortable. And he was so easy to talk to, very non-judgmental. And I had the fortune to be on a team of leaders with him later, many years later. And he just never, he wouldn't let us take things too seriously. You know what I mean? In other words, just let's have fun, like make the practice fun. And another thing that stood out to me was like how much he loved his wife. I still remember when he met Susanna and got married, and he would just, whenever he talked about her, his face would light up, and I'd ask a question. Well, okay, can we meet at your house? Right? And we'll have to ask my child bride. That was kind of his nickname for her. Anyway, I feel really fortunate that I got to know him and practice alongside him. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark. Someone mentioned that Jerry was the Alameda chapter leader. Well, I was the first Young Men's Division Alameda chapter leader. So we were co-leaders. And so I got to do a lot of activities with him. And as people have mentioned or kind of hinted that some of the leaders at that time were a little more direct and a little louder than we would have preferred. And Jerry was never like that. I only saw him angry, I think, one time towards me, and and maybe I could never find 5 and times he had gotten angry. So I really appreciated that. And he was really good at teaching me how to do things. One thing Jerry was very good at, and we often have to do that, is conduct memorial services. And I always thought, wow, he's so encouraging when he speaks. And so I would always call him and say, we got a memorial service. And finally, at one point, he says, I think you can handle it. And I was not eager to, but that was what, that's what we agreed on. That's the way we worked. So I did it. And then I said, yeah, I learned something. And I kept learning and learning. And so, yeah, Jerry's house, I know he had 1 or 2 or maybe 3 in Alameda. We had meetings at each one of those. And then he had this great place up on Dunsmuir. And so anyway, I really appreciate Jerry. I learned a lot. We were co-leaders. I got a lot of opportunity to learn from him. So we were chapter leaders together, and whatever the next level was at that time, general chapter and one more. So, and as you said, he never, so rarely ever got upset, but you could feel his determination. You could feel his life condition. So I really appreciate Jerry. Thanks.
Hey, good afternoon. I just want to say I hadn't seen Jerry in years, but when I found out he passed, all these beautiful memories came up about Jerry. And I remember the house in Alameda. When I would go over to the shopping center, I'd love to at least come down the street. I could remember his voice. And as the Buddha says, the voice does the work. And he just had this voice that could just really soul stir you and get you into motion. And I remember one time he checked me real good. And boy, did I shake out of it. I remember we were at the community center in San Francisco, and I was just kind of dragging him around. And he's like, Rochelle, shake out of it. Whoa. I'm like, oh, okay. But anyway, Jerry, we're going to miss you. And, you never think about people till the well runs dry, and you think people are going to be here forever, but they're not going to be here forever. So with that said, Jerry, we loved you. We're going to miss you. And I appreciate all the encouragement you gave to me and everyone else. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mariama Hadia, and my first memory was when I joined the organization. It was late 70s, and that's when I met Jerry. I was recently divorced, and I had lost my place to stay, and I was getting really depressed, but I was trying to practice out. And I ended up staying with my sister who lived in Fremont. And I remember someone called me and said, they're going to have Jerry Leach come over and give me some guidance. And I didn't know much what that meant or anything. And so I was just sitting there sad on the couch. And when Jerry came to the door, he was so tall and he had this beautiful, bright smile. And I was like, oh, who is he, you know? And so he came in and we sat on the couch and talked. And I don't know what he said, but he made me laugh. And I found myself laughing instead of being depressed, and, you know. And everything got lighter. And he told me to come and join them when they do some go and visit other members. And I started doing that. But he really encouraged me, and I kept practicing because of that. So, and then later I met Susanna when she was living in Union City. And I kind of lived in that area for a while and started my practice there too. So I really appreciate him and getting to know him. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Nancy Goth.
Hi. That's better, huh? I think we're all here because Jerry touched us in some way and made our life better some way. But Jerry, myself, and Mr. Hanson were, I don't know what they called it in those days, area leaders or whatever, together for most of the 80s. And so we experienced a lot of stress together. And many of those stressful evenings afterwards, Jerry and I would retire to some location for some refreshments and rekindle and rejuvenate our lives again. And it was something that I always remember, those intimate moments with Jerry, sitting and trying to reflect on what the heck we just went through. And hopefully we can, make the next step better. But one other great memory is, I don't know if you remember, some of you, the Washington Convention in DC, and they had this big arena. And because I guess we were leaders, we got to sit up in the front, but we weren't on stage. And I don't know if it was somebody touched somebody or elbowed somebody on stage or something, but Jerry and I started laughing. And when you laugh, sometimes you laugh so hard or so much that you can't stop. So here these people are making these wonderful, encouraging speeches. And Jerry and I would have to bend over, turn our heads and not, just laugh out loud. And we must have laughed for a third of that meeting. It was something that was, I'll never forget. And, I've got a favorite quote from Sensei that says, if a person has just one good friend, their happiness is doubled and their life immeasurably enriched. This is genuine wealth. And I think we're all pretty wealthy today and from each other.
I'm Bob. I disagree with everything Steve just said. No, it was knowing Jerry was I didn't know him that well, really. I just knew him, but I trusted him. It's like one of these. I didn't have to know him real well. And as Steve was saying, that sometimes we would have activities that got a little dicey, rough. And one of our longtime friends, I think a lot of us will remember Ed Horan. And after one of these dicey activities, I'd call Ed up, and Ed would say, boy, that was a doozy, wasn't it? And I think Jerry was kind of just the opposite. Nothing affected him. And not in a bad way. I mean, he was real sensitive, but I think I was referred to him as Mr. Smooth and Mr. Velvet. He's always just, it was like people are saying, when he talked to somebody, it was so encouraging. He wasn't affected by circumstances. And I remember the photo here of him in looks like a brown leather jacket. And he also had that green sports coat he wore all the time. And I was real envious because I've never had either. He had so much. Anyway, I think we all have great memories of Jerry, and it was said that we're all great friends till the end. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kai Thomas. I first met Jerry when I was 12 years old on Long Island, and John became my best friend, Jerry's brother. And I remember Jerry's dad would sit in his big overstuffed chair smoking a pipe, reading books about self-hypnosis and Buddhism. And I think that's where Jerry originally got maybe the seeking spirit for Buddhism. But his family reminded me, and I think we're all about that age, of Leave It to Beaver. Because I came from a broken home, and I used to go over to his house just to be with a family that was happy. And John told me this story, and I think it's okay to talk about the heart that Jerry had. John decided when he's in his 20s, he wanted to drive down to Florida for the vacation. And he said he turned his head real fast and his neck froze. So he had to spend the entire trip driving back with his neck like this. So when he got back, he called Jerry and he said, man, he says, my neck is frozen. And Jerry says, well, are you chanting? And he goes, no. And he says, well, I think you should start to chant. So he's driving down the Long Island Expressway one day, and both of his back wheels fell off the car. So now he calls up Jerry and tells him that the wheels have fallen off the car. And Jerry says again, are you chanting? And he said, no. About a month later, he contracts hepatitis. And he calls up Jerry, and Jerry says, that's it. He gets on a plane and he flies to Long Island and re-enshrined John's Gohonzon, and they started to chant. So Jerry, I mean, it's unbelievable. When I first got here, I'll just end with this. I wanted to meet him, and I remember asking Bob, I said, I come over to the house? And he told me this story that I don't know if you know this, they called him Captain because he drove Sensei. And he picked up Sensei, I believe it was Oakland, and Sensei and Mrs. Ikeda got in the car, and Sensei said, I remember you from Hawaii. And so he's driving up to the maze to go across to the San Francisco Culture Center, and there's a sea of red taillights. It's just a total traffic jam. And Jerry's chanting inside, and all of a sudden a motorcycle cop comes up and asks him to roll down the window. And he says, I've cleared the way for you. Just follow me. So Jerry goes unaccompanied across the bridge. And the whole time he said, Sensei is like writing cards to people and trying to encourage them. At the same time, he told me that when the high priest came here, they went to Pinole, and they're driving up on Highway 1 because he wanted to go by the ocean. And the high priest said to him, or through his interpreter, he said, can you tell me what those flowers are on the side of the road? And Jerry says, I have no idea. And he says, I want a new driver. So Jerry goes, Sensei heaven, high priest hell. That's the kind of person Jerry was.
Thank you so much, sir, for that encouragement. Okay. My name is Carmen Davis Dye. And when I met Jerry Leach, my name was Carmen Davis. I was a young woman just in the beginnings of my practice, and I was a member of what was called the Biakran group, behind the scenes. And I had the good fortune, and I will say the very good fortune, being behind the scenes, protecting the members. And every time I was placed somewhere remotely, here was Jerry Leach popping up, instead of being out there with the rest of the senior leaders, he's somewhere backstage remote. And I would look at him, he would smile at me. Hey, Carmen, how you doing? And either I would be doing well, and he could tell, or I would be in the state of hell, and he could tell. And he would be there to encourage me fondly. And he didn't have to say a whole lot. At one point in time, I knew there was something familial about him. And we started talking, and then I realized, I was like, are you from New York? He said, well, I was wondering when you were going to pick that up. Let me just say this. Jerry Leach was like a father. He was very warm, very encouraging. He could give a go-show lecture, if you will. And when you came out of the study, you had a clue. And that meant the world to me. And to see him be at that time a headquarters leader, territory leader, and all the leadership that he had, he was still consistently the same person. He was the same and a treasure. He was a treasure that I will always cherish. And I know I will see him next lifetime. And you guys got to have the best of him. Truly, Susanna, Sakura, you got the best of him. But I think everyone in this room got the best of Jerry Leach. So thank you.
Thank you all for those reflections, remembrances, memories. He used to call me Babu. I used to be the YMD territory leader, and I used to walk into the Kaikan, and I used to feel, oh my God, I'm walking in a minefield or something sometimes. It used to be tense, and he would just smile and embrace. So I remember that very much, and I really appreciate him for that. So now we're going to have closing remarks by Jim Crumph, another wonderful leader, Golden Gate Mentor Disciple Zone leader for that matter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, before anything, I want to offer sincerest condolences to
Susanna, and the whole family on behalf of all of SGI USA. And really appreciate everybody's reflections about Jerry. Just reminded me of so many great times I spent with Jerry. Spent a lot of time with Jerry in the 70s and the 80s. And, you know, as people have said, he was always just so gracious and good humored, a very sly sense of humor. But watching the video reminded me of the ubiquitous leather jacket and the tassel loafers. But yeah, Jerry was quite the individual, and I appreciate so much having had the opportunity to not just know him, but really, you know, spend a lot of very meaningful times with him. Well, I wanted to just say a word for anyone who's not familiar with the Nichiren Buddhist view of life and death, about, you know, what our view of that is. And I think first and foremost, we do not see death as the antithesis of life. We don't look on it with abhorrence or as something to be feared, but actually life and death are the two phases of life as it exists eternally. And SGI President Ikeda, I think, has the great analogy. He says that if we think of life as being like the ocean, the individual people are like waves that emerge from the surface of the ocean. And when they gain enough energy, then they rise up and they gradually lose their energy and they return to the greater ocean. And each wave has the same qualities as the water of the ocean. So every person really has the same potential as the universe itself. And second, President Toda used the great analogy that life and death are like the two aspects of sleeping and being awake. And of course, as we go through our day, if it's a long day, we gradually kind of get worn out and tired and eventually have to go to sleep. And after you sleep, you wake up the next morning and your energy is refreshed and you know, you start a new day. But as with sleeping and waking, you know, as Buddhists, we see that everything in our life is the result of karma. That the very profound view of the law of cause and effect that Buddhism has sees cause and effect as spanning the three existences of past, present, and future. And that everything in our present life is the effect, the accumulated effect of our lifetime after lifetime of making causes. And, you know, it's really difficult to make a connection between the effects we're receiving sometimes and the cause. It might have been in the past. But if you believe in the law of cause and effect, there's no question that every effect had a cause. Well, this also applies to human relationships. And we're not connected to people that we're close to or people in our family by accident. It's because we have a karmic relationship with those folks from the past. And so that said, you know, losing a loved one is, of course, painful, and we have to grieve. But Ikeda Sensei has said that you could also think of it like the person has just gone away to another country where you won't see them for a while, because eventually you will be reunited. And you know, while we can't avoid grieving, Sensei has also said, in reference to Nichiren Daishonen's encouragement, that we should chant as much as we possibly can for a person who's passed away, that we actually transform our grief into prayers for the deceased person's happiness. And that encouragement has been so meaningful to me personally. Having had both of my parents pass away, and I think the more I have chanted for my mother since she passed away. In some way, I almost feel closer to her than I did, when she was alive, but she lived in a never state, and I hardly ever saw her. So I think that this is the profound relationship that we have with people that we're that closely related to. And I wanted to also share with you that Sensei has said that, through our Buddhist practice, we accumulate what in Buddhism is termed treasures of the heart. Treasures of the heart are, your faith, but also the profound relationships that you have with other people. And he says that even if someone should die of an accident or someone should succumb to dementia, those treasures of the heart are never destroyed, that they exist, in the most profound level of your life. And he also says that families who have ties based on the mystic law, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, will definitely be united in the future and be born together in the same land. So I think that Nichiren Buddhism has the most hopeful outlook on life and death and how we can understand how to stay connected with our family members who have passed away. And definitely through chanting for their happiness, we can maintain that and even deepen that relationship with them. So once again, I want to offer my condolences to Susanna and the whole family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for those words. We will now conclude this memorial service, by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo 3 times. I do want to say, after the closure of the service, you may all congregate in the lobby if you so wish for a few minutes. And there's also a reception that is being held by Sakura and family and Mrs. Leach, and the address is at the front table. So thank you very much again.
Nam Yo Denge Kyo. Nam Yo Denge Kyo.
Thank you.